What's up, beautiful people? It's Tuesday if you're in the Healing Matrix, which means it's time for another Transmission Tuesday. If you're on YouTube, it's probably Friday because I like to give priority to the wonderful souls that are in my Facebook group. It's free to join. Link is in the description box. It's super private and safe space if you want to join us there. But these videos come up live on Tuesdays at 12 ADT. And today I want to talk about how the frig do we connect to our higher selves. We hear blah blah higher self or acting in your higher self so often in the spiritual community. And unless you have really been diving into that kind of study or connection or understanding for a while, you might not really understand how to connect. It's not something that, or it is something, I guess, that gets talked about a lot, but is one of those things that's kind of left without explanation. So the first thing to talk about is what our higher self is. And a little bit like our intuition, there's a distinction between your higher self and your egoic mind. You know, it's really tricky, especially when you first begin, to distinguish between what my true higher self is saying and what my egoic mind is saying. You know, you can believe that you're maybe doing something for the benefit of someone and you truly want to help them and you're actually acting out of your higher self when really you're doing it because you want to appear a certain way, or you want to be liked, or you want to be accepted, and it's actually an action that's coming from your egoic mind or your sense of ego. So getting to know your ego and knowing how it shows up, which involves, knowing what makes you feel insecure or knowing where your past hurts are. These types of awarenesses about yourself can really empower you to move forwards with clarity or to act with clarity when you do want to connect with your higher self. And, we're humans. I forget that sometimes, but we're humans and you can't always know. And you're not always going to act without ego. The person who lives without ego is the person who lives in the cave. So allow yourself that sort of space and that sort of room to play and room to make mistakes. But getting to know that aspect of yourself and recognizing that and becoming friends with the things that make you feel uncomfortable, the things that make you act in a way that you're not super proud of, is super empowering, because then you can really make these distinctions between, is this actually my higher self speaking to me, or is this something I'm doing out of ego? And the higher self is really just the highest expression of you. So let's say you really love to paint, or you really love to play soccer, and you've had a really beautiful day painting or a really fun day playing soccer in the field, and you walk off the pitch or you finish your painting and you just feel really like yourself. You feel really good. You feel really in your body. That is you embodying your higher self. You don't need to go through these crazy layers of deep meditations all the time to connect to your higher self. Your higher self is really just the highest expression of yourself. And ideally, when you're in your higher self, or you're connected to your higher self, that also means that you're acting from a place that's free from judgment, free from evaluation as it being good or being bad. When we're living in like the 5D reality, or when we're living through love, we don't really evaluate things as good or bad. That really polarizes things and it makes it easy to place blame. So living without this sort of sense of evaluation, as well as being really in your truth and in your heart. Knowing that you're acting from a place that feels solid to you and feels grounded is most likely going to be when you're connected to your higher self. So I always want to jump around because I get excited about the things I want to talk about, but I'm going to save that other thing that just flew through my mind to the end. But next is, how do we connect? How do we do this? And there are a bunch of ways, and I probably will say more than 3. If you follow me on Instagram, I had posted something about 3 ways to connect to your higher self, but I'll probably do more than that. But number 1 is, as you might have guessed, meditating. And I feel like for people who don't meditate or who don't have a meditation practice, meditation has kind of become like the word veganism. Like it has this like attachment to it where it feels like it's something you should be doing, or it's something that everyone should be doing. And if you don't do it or it doesn't resonate with you, you feel kind of weird and you're not really sure where to go from there. So instead of really framing it as you need to meditate to connect to your higher self, what I mean more is practicing sitting with yourself. I call it sometimes breath listening, and sitting with yourself and listening to yourself breathe, doing things like scanning your body and practicing releasing tension, and just getting to a place where you feel calm and slow and centered. And yes, the word meditation can take you there. But if you set a timer for, I have a pretty busy mind. So for me, 10 minutes isn't long enough. It takes me longer than 10 minutes to really come into a place of center. If I set a timer for 13 minutes or 15 minutes, and I just sit down and I just practice breathing in and out and active relaxing and scanning my body, then by the time those 13 minutes are up, I'm very connected to my center and I feel very in my sort of zone of who I am and who I want to be. And when you get to that point of stillness, however long it takes you, and sometimes people don't even need to meditate. Sometimes people are pretty chill people, or their minds aren't super busy, and they can just go and sit by the water and feel totally free. That's the same aspect, or the same effect, I guess. Like you don't need to sit down and meditate for 25 minutes in order to get there. So when you arrive at that point of stillness, then ask your guides, ask the universe, ask whoever you believe in, ask yourself to connect to your higher self, and ask if there are any messages that you need to hear, or anything that needs to be coming through, or just ask to be connected to your higher self on a more frequent basis or on a daily basis. And through these videos that I do and all these tips that I do, these are all well and good, if you do them once. But ideally, if you could pick one thing that I do in my videos and practice it for a month, practice it 2 to 3 times a week for 30 days, then you're really going to start to understand how it happens and how it works, and it's actually going to become a part of your life. There's all of these things like it takes 21 days to create a habit, and these sort of concepts about how long it takes for something to become part of your routine. But I'm not talking about incorporating these skills into your routine all the time and you always have to practice them, but you do have to implement them enough in your life when you're learning them in order for them to become something that you use in your toolbox. And just a little side tangent, but that's the kind of stuff that we do in my 3-month programs and those kinds of things. The Ascension Code, which is a private program that I run, is teaching you how to use tools and then implement them so that you can connect to your higher self. and know how to do that when you're in a situation where you don't really know what to do, or you're overwhelmed, or whatever. So just taking this with a grain of salt and remembering that practice is as important, if not more so, than the initial knowledge. So breath listening, getting still, asking, that's number one. Number two is connecting through your heart and practicing. Again, this is just like a frequent practice, practicing dropping out of your mind and into your heart. And your heart and your gut, these truth centers, these really are the messengers of your higher self. These centers that will not lead you astray. Sometimes we can act out of the emotional heart. We feel really compassionate, or we feel really like we need to do something for that person, and then we act in a way that's maybe not great for us. That's different than really grounding and knowing what is good for us in our true centers. But having a connection with your heart and trying to listen and to see out of your heart is such an active practice of connecting to your higher self. So getting to know what it feels like when you feel like you're living in your heart compared to when you're living in your head, and just having a daily practice of taking all of this and dropping it down. If you're in a situation where you feel overwhelmed, or you feel stressed, or you feel like you need to make a big decision, envision all of the decision and all of the thought up here and dropping it into your heart. And that will help you walk the path towards your higher self and to connect to your higher self. The third way is, this is something I do often actually, which is I ask the universe, I ask my guides, please help me choose the highest thought available to me. So if I notice that I'm feeling super negative, or I'm feeling kind of petty, or I'm in a situation where others are involved and I'm not feeling all that compassionate, I ask my guides, I ask myself, and I ask the universe, please help me connect to the highest thought available to me. Please help me choose the highest thought available to me. And one of the most beautiful ways you can really anchor in your higher self is by noticing that you have a thought and starting where you are and trying to choose one thought above that. I really don't want to do this today, to, even though I don't want to do it, I'm going to do it anyway. And then trying to choose a higher thought. Even though I don't want to do it, I'm going to do it anyway, to, I know that doing it is going to make me feel better, to, I'm accepting that I'm going to do this thing because I have value of making sure that I keep myself in balance, to, I'm looking forward to doing this because I know it's going to keep myself in balance, to, wow, I really want to do this thing. And you can feel how the energy changes from that first statement to the final statement. And asking your guides, asking for assistance, and asking your higher self to help you choose the highest thought available to you is such a beautiful practice and way of taking yourself from here and moving your thoughts up one at a time until you are actually acting in your higher self, and your whole vibration has changed, and your whole way of you approaching your day has also changed. So that's a really beautiful practice. And I guess we'll tangent off of that one to do our fourth way, but the fourth way of sort of embodying your higher self, and some of you I might get a few eye rolls for this, but is choosing the high road. Choosing the high road, choosing to be compassionate, choosing to be forgiving, choosing to be understanding with boundaries. That is a way that, that is a way that you're connecting to your higher self. You really are activating your higher self when you're choosing to choose potentially the more difficult, the more uncomfortable, the more frustrating road. But when you're choosing the high road, you're signaling to the universe and to the vibrations around you that I could act in this way, but instead I'm standing in the center and I'm choosing a different path. You know, it's hard to admit to ourselves, but we always have a choice. We are never left without a choice. You know, when you say, I have to drive my kid to school, otherwise they wouldn't get to school. Well, you don't have to drive them. You know, you could choose not to, but that would change the flow of the day. That would change if they get to school or how they get to school. It would change how you feel, you know, but you're making a choice and recognizing that, coming back to, I am empowered. I have the ability to make this choice. I have the ability to choose the high road. And even though I might not want to, I'm going to choose the high road, is embodying your higher self. Because, you know, I try not to polarize about like your lower self and your higher self, but there's definitely your higher self and, you know, your impatient self or your version of yourself where maybe you look back on the action that you made and you wish you had chosen differently. And having that practice of choosing the high road is something that will help you stay in that high vibration more often and for longer. And the last one, just because I want to be mindful of your time, a quick way to be really in your higher self, like I used in the example this morning, is to do something you love. Embodying your higher self, being in flow state, really letting that vibration and that feeling of you exuding the happiness that you have to radiate on this planet by doing something that you love is one of the fastest ways to raise your vibration and to keep yourself connected to your higher self, because your highest self is the truest expression of you. So if you don't feel like yourself, go do something that you love. Go dance like a maniac for 3 minutes for one song and then see how you feel. And, you know, practice. I'm not going to say practice makes perfect because we're never going to be perfect, but practice definitely helps make the road easier. Much love to you all. I will post my usual links if you're in YouTube in the description box below. Check out the program that I'm running. Check me out on Instagram if you haven't followed me already, Indigo Instinct Healing. And for those of you in the Matrix, thank you so much for being part of this community. I love you all, and I'm wishing you all a super blessed Tuesday. Bye.